We're going to get started tonight. This is our food storage, what to store, what's the best to store, what not to store. And so we'll just get going so we can get into it. So we just asked Sandra Cox to give the prayer.
Dear Father, we are so grateful for these folks who have prepared this for us tonight and to help us to be prepared for whatever comes our way. We pray that thou wilt bless Barbara as she presents, that the thoughts can come to her mind easily and quickly, and we can receive the inspiration that we need. Please guide and protect us, we pray, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. So I had a funny joke already that if you were here for the weapons preparedness class, that's in 2 weeks. Now watch half of you get up and leave. And if you were here for zombie apocalypse, it's real, as well as tinfoil hat making, that is next week. So see Fred Davies next week. And tonight is food storage, upping your game. So raise a hands. Who feels they're ready? We saw 2 hands go up. Remember that. Who's just beginning, doesn't even know where to start? Anyone in that? Okay. So quick background about me. My husband had an online emergency preparedness business. So got a lot of experience there. And in my last stake, I was the emergency preparedness specialist in charge of education. So we would meet monthly, had a huge group that came, both church members as well as community members, and we'd have first a cooking class and then a skills class based on some aspect of emergency preparedness. So that's where a lot of my experience comes from. I want to talk about why do we have food storage?
When we're stuck in our house.
When you're stuck in your house, so the pandemic and being quarantined, excellent. Why else do you have food storage?
Save money.
How does it save you money?
Buy in bulk.
Buy in bulk and repackage, right? In fact,
Gas shortage.
Gas shortage, and
No gas available, no food.
no food coming in. If no gas is available, and what gas is available is expensive, which means the prices of everything go up because shipping goes up. I saw your hand clap. Loss of job is an excellent one. So loss of job. How about illness? If someone is ill in your family, just like the pandemic, and you can't go out. What about hoarding? And we have seen that. And so what you want isn't available. So there are many reasons to have food storage. It's not something that, okay, I've been told I need to do it. I've got my food storage. It's in my basement, and I've never looked at it again. And that happens way too often. I've had people tell me that they're prepared. And when I questioned them, this was the one that I was the most amused by. A family of 5 had 80 pounds of wheat, and they thought they were prepared for a year. So their thought was way, way off. One of the strongest reasons that I heard for having food storage is a member of our stake presidency said, I have food storage because I don't want to hear my children cry because they're hungry. So there's an emotional, I've got to have food storage. So hopefully you're already motivated and you don't need to be concerned about hearing your children cry because you are ready, and if you're not, we're going to talk about how to do it. So let me see what I think. This was one that I am very familiar with. My food storage says it's good for 25 years. It's good for 25 years. Is that right? They said it is. It's on the can. It's on the church website. 25 years. So the things that kill your food storage are heat, light, oxygen, and moisture. And for the samples that I'm making tonight, or made tonight, and you guys at home aren't going to get to taste those. If you're at home and in town, run right over, okay? As I opened a can of white beans, only 8 years old, I said, wow, this was a little old. Now, if this was a real emergency, we would use it. So I used it. You guys are going to taste it tonight, and then you can evaluate what you think. So if your food storage is in a hot garage, south-facing, it's not going to have the longevity that you think it should have. So how do you overcome that? If you've got it all stored somewhere and you're not taking it out, you're not cooking with it, you're not playing with it. I had somebody say to me, but I've got it organized so beautifully, I don't want to take anything out. Well, when it's time to eat it, then you're going to be sorry. We talked about that. This is one of my favorites. If you're hungry enough, you will eat it. What do you think? If you're hungry enough, would you eat it? I see one head nodding out there.
That's a good way to feel sick.
It can be a good way to feel sick, yes. Go ahead, Kyle.
So this wasn't eating it, but this was drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I was down to the Amazon Bubble, and I was extremely dirty after home and the Bubble. It's good to get to their faucet or to the water well, and a couple of that water straight up the bird. I was so dirty, I didn't realize it. All down, so I was all down, and it went to through.
Yes. Could they at home hear that? Was he loud enough they could hear it? Okay. So that made him very sick because he didn't have the water that he needed. I think more real is food fatigue and the law of diminishing returns. So food fatigue, I can't eat that same thing one more time. And we especially see that in war-torn countries and after World War II. The young and the elderly voluntarily stopped eating because they could not eat that one more time. And even if it's something you love, and I have this example that I find amusing. So my coworker's wife was maybe 5'2", and I don't think even 105 pounds. She won the BYU donut eating contest. So first, they found the best person in each dorm, then the best man, the best woman, and it was her and the football player. She beat him out. How many donuts do you think she ate? Come on, I need some numbers thrown out here.
6.
More than 20. More than 50.
Whoa.
No more guesses? She ate 6 dozen. One of those pink cake box, full sheet cake boxes. 6 dozen donuts in 4 hours. And her desire was, please let me walk out of here. Just let me walk out of here. They had to carry the football player out. But to this day, she cannot look at a donut without being sick. So apply that to you in food storage. I have my 80 pounds of wheat. That's all you have. How many days can you eat that wheat before you don't want to eat anymore and you choose not to eat? So food fatigue is very real. You have to have a variety, and that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. What does your family like? What don't they like? And even if it's a great deal at the store, you got a case for half price. If your family doesn't like it, you've wasted money, and it still doesn't matter. So we're going to talk about different kinds of food storage and see what's true about them, what's not true. Okay, freeze-dried food. Very trendy right now. Get those home freeze dryers. What do you think? Now, they've even come down by almost half, but they're about $2,500 right now. What else do you know about them?
They're supposed to last 20 years.
The freeze-dried food has a long-term shelf life. Yes, Fred.
My brother-in-law is in the manufacturing company that makes those. And once he described the process that it drives it, I said there's no nutrition left, period. It may still taste okay, but they've heated and cooled, heated and cooled so many times they filled every drop of getting enzymes, vitamins, and minerals through that food.
Yep. So there's a con. Some of it tastes like styrofoam. That's a big con. You know, some tastes okay, some does not. It can look appetizing because they freeze it so it has its shape that it did before they froze it and then drew out every bit of moisture. But the cons, we talked about, it's expensive. It has no nutritional value, or a lot is destroyed. We also have this is a killer. How much moisture is in freeze-dried food? Anybody got a guess? I'm putting you guys on the spot tonight, huh? Has 1 to 4%. So, you have enough water stored. If you don't have enough, and it tastes good just like it is, when you start eating it, where's it going to get the water that it needs? From your body. And if you want to talk about not feeling well, so my friend is one of the authors of this book, Store This, Not That, and the day that they sampled freeze-dried food, they got so sick because they weren't drinking enough water. So there's a real-life example. So freeze-dry is not the be-all, end-all, the way some people think. What about dehydrated foods? What are the pros of dehydrated? I'm going to start picking on people. I know you have thoughts.
A longer shelf life?
It has a shorter shelf life than freeze-dried. It depends on how dry it is. So the drier you make it, the longer the shelf life, but the more you need water. So there's the con. What else do you know about dehydrated? Fred?
As long as it's dehydrated at a low temperature, 130-ish, most of the enzymes, vitamins, and minerals are still there. It's still living food.
So it still has nutritional value when dried properly. Anything else? Do we still need water with this? So you've got to have a lot of water stored, but not as much as freeze-dried, because it usually has 20 to 25% water versus 1 to 4% water. Cons, what about weight? If you had to move it, you had to evacuate, or you had to move to another house. Let's talk about how to get free food storage when your neighbor moves and doesn't want to haul all that stuff with them. It can be heavy and hard to move, and if you're evacuating, it's heavy. It is less expensive than freeze-dried. A good freeze dryer, $200 to $300, so much less expensive. What about frozen food? How's that fit into your food storage? Does it fit into food storage?
Small amounts.
Small amounts. Why small amounts?
Electricity lost in the entire.
So that's one of the cons. What else can be a con to that? What's the storage life on frozen? 2 years if it's perfectly packaged. Perfectly packaged. But what are the pros of frozen food?
Water.
Water. You don't necessarily need water to repeat it. I heard a comment over here. It tastes a whole lot better, huh? Anything else you guys can think of? It tastes good. Generally easy to cook. If it even needs to cook, you could eat frozen peas, frozen, or let them thaw to room temperature and they'd still be good. But it does have a shorter shelf life, and especially if you have no power. Okay, canned foods. Good, bad, middle? What are the pros, what are the cons? You do. There's quite a bit of liquid. You don't necessarily need to add liquid, and some of the existing liquid you can save to prepare other things with. So that's one of the really good things about canned. What else? You can do your garden. You can can your garden, so that's home canned stuff, which we've got some of that here. We'll talk about. Scratch and dent is no deal on canned food. You do not want that. Where the dent is, it's weakened, and that destroys the integrity of the can, and the food can spoil. So if you think you're getting a deal with the dented cans, you're not. Please don't buy those. Yes?
Often there are additives in there, lots of salt or sugar. that may not be to your best interest when you have nothing else.
So some nutritional compromises sometimes. Or something can. Can I eat it straight from the jar with no preparation? That is definitely one of the pros of it. How about portability?
Heavy.
Heavy. Yep. And so yes, you can eat it straight from the can or the jar without heating. So very easy to prepare. What about these glass jars? And we have an earthquake. And yes, earthquakes happen everywhere. Everywhere.
Store them properly.
What's housed properly for a glass
So
jar?
they can't fall off the shelf.
So they can't fall off.
Or bang against each other.
Yes. So in our last house, I actually had a ledge put on the edge of my shelves. So they could fall off, but it would take a lot more effort. And they also make these containers that hold 12 jars, and they're all separated between the jars. So they can rock against each other and nothing will break. A little expensive, and if you have a lot of home canned foods, not practical at all. So let's see. Oh, shelf life. How long is the shelf life of canned food? Well, let's hold up the commercially canned food. How long is the shelf life?
Probably longer than it says on the can.
Ooh, longer than it says on the can. Longer than the expiration date. So let's talk about that expiration date. Some states require manufacturers to put an expiration date on the can. The manufacturers really have no idea. So the date on the can is their best guess for optimum quality. Their best guess.
So they call that best used by.
Yes, best used by. And that's, again, it's a guess. Canned food, 100 years old, has been found, tested by scientists. There is not a thing in that canned food that would kill you. Does it look awful? Yes. Is the texture awful? Yes. Does it taste awful? Yes. Does it have any nutritional value? Yes. No. It has no nutritional value. But it's not going to kill you. So when you see the date on here and your children come to visit and start cleaning out your cupboard because they say everything is expired and you're endangering your life, not so. Use judgment. It will start to taste kind of tinny after a while, but that doesn't mean it's going to hurt you. So if it best used by is the first of the month, on the second, it hasn't magically gone bad overnight. So use judgment on that. Did we talk about heavy already if you had to move them? I think we did. Okay. Gardening, how's that fit into your food storage?
We asked the home and life.
Well, if I say this, somebody may want to hurt me. Easily 2 years. I'm comfortable with 3 years, and I have eaten stuff that's 5 years. So if you're looking for, is there seeping? Has the flat lid come off? All those kinds of things that would indicate there's a problem. It will discolor, and if it discolors, then you make bottled fruit cake, and then nobody knows and doesn't care, and it just tastes good. So one of the classes that I taught was called How Old is Too Old? And we talked about how you could tell if it was too old and what you could do when things were too old, whether that was beans or grain or canned things. So use your best judgment, but don't go crazy. Okay, so on to garden. How does gardening fit in your food storage plan? Red's nodding, it fits. Sandra?
It's live food, so there's good nutrients.
Good nutrition there. Expensive to get set up, so there's one of the cons. You have to have some skill. If you've never gardened before and you go out and put a seed in the dirt, what do you think? So it does take some skill. It can be expensive to set up if you're doing raised beds and irrigation and all those things. What else? Pros and cons.
Rabbit.
Rabbits and deer. and mice. So if you come to my house, we have the 8-foot wildlife fence for a reason. Keep the deer out of our orchard, the chickens out of the garden, and rabbits and other things out of the garden. So. What else?
It is optimal nutrition, absolutely, and it's also seasonal, which is when our body needs it the most, is when it's in season.
Okay.
We've got those two pros, but it's also a con, isn't it? Because you don't have the same things you eat in winter.
Right, you don't. How about cooking? You have to cook everything? There are some things that are better cooked. Winter squash, I prefer that cooked. But there are a lot of things you don't need to cook. Eggs, I agree with that. Okay, so what are some that we talked about? You have to have some skill set. It can be expensive. What other cons are there?
Work.
Takes effort. So if it's in the middle of a big disaster, are you going to have time to focus on your garden? You may, you may not. What else? Water. We are in a more than 20-year drought. Water. And in the past it's happened, if anybody's lived here a while, where the water company says, okay, no outdoor watering. Now, if what you've got is all about gardening, then you're in trouble. Let's say the opposite. Too much water. We have 2 solid weeks of rain, it's flooding. What happens to your garden?
The weeds take over.
Your garden can wash away. This is a quote that applies in so many ways. Mother Nature always wins. She always does. We can do all we think. We're so prepared. We've done this and this and this. But Mother Nature always wins. That doesn't mean don't prepare. That means you do your best and you have backup plans, which is why we're talking about all these different types of food storage.
Diversify. Do you put all your financial investments in one thing? No. Why not? Why do you not put all your money in one thing? Come on, it's obvious. Safety. If that one thing doesn't work, then you're, well, I won't use that word. Then you're up a creek. Let's say that.
Like Texas.
Yes, like Texas, exactly. But if you've diversified, if you have freeze-dried, dried, canned, frozen, and garden, then you're pretty good. So that one thing could fail, but you've got the other things as a backup. Diversify, diversify, diversify. If you remember nothing else tonight, remember diversify. Okay. How much food storage do you need?
Lots, because your kids come home.
That's
Or
you may, yeah.
share with the neighbors or something.
Yes, you may be taking care of more than just your immediate family. Now, something that amuses me again is the people who want to buy gold because gold does not lose its value. Somebody comes to your door. There's no grocery store. There's nowhere to get food except what you've got at your property. It says, I'll give you this gold if you give me some food. Does that gold have value? Anybody out here willing to take the gold for the food?
If it can be traded, yes, but not, if not.
You'd have to find a way to barter it somewhere else. So if you have somebody who has something you know you want, and they'll take the gold, then maybe it's a, yeah. But I think most people will not be willing to do anything for the gold because the gold now has no value when this is all you've got. There's that scene from the movie Titanic where I don't know positions on a cruise ship. Anyway, the steward has been paid money to get that villain off the ship. And the steward throws all the cash back in and realizing they're drowning. What good is that money? Same thing with the gold. What good is it if this is the food you've got? You don't need gold, you need food. So back to how much? I kind of got sidetracked there. How much?
There's papers that give it out per person.
There is. In fact, I have an Excel spreadsheet that we'll put on the website where you put in how many adults you have, how many children you have, And it tells you by weight how much grain you need, how much of everything you need. You can put in, well, I have 5-gallon buckets of this, I have number 10 cans of this, and then it calculates, you still need this. So it's a good way to figure out what you need.
Do you
Yeah.
start with that of how long you're going to need it for?
You have to look at that. On the worksheet, it says how long it is good for. So then you can say, oh, I need to rotate that out and replace
Year
it.
storage, 2 years storage.
If it's 2 year, I would just double it for 2 year. And how you could do that is, well, there's 2 adults and 2 kids in my family. I'll put 4 adults and 4 kids, and then that automatically doubles it for 2 years.
So it's designed for a single year.
Yes, it's designed for 1 year. And it can be confusing to some people. If it's confusing, I'm happy to help you with it because I think it's important. So food storage, you need more than you think. And especially when you see the quantity. It has a large footprint, a year of food. So sometimes storing it can be a question. How do I store this? Especially, I don't want it to be hot. I don't want it to be in the sun. What are your ideas for storing?
Basement.
Basement. See, in Utah, a lot of us have a basement, but not all. What else?
Root cellar.
A root cellar would be generally even better than a basement because it's cooler, but not always drier. So, you have no basement, you have no root cellar.
Under the bed.
Under the bed. Okay, so one of my friends, I'm trying to think how many she fit. I think she fit 64 number 10 cans under her bed. And she actually, now this is not good for rotating, but she actually set her box springs on the number 10 cans. So, but couldn't rotate. Under her children's, and I don't have a number 2 can, she used number 2 cans under her children's single beds. So she had a fair amount of food storage. It just wasn't readily accessible, but there's an option. Any other ideas?
As long as it's inside far enough to not have the south sun hitting it and those kinds of temperature changes, it can be anywhere in your house that is got storage room.
Yes. So be creative. We had a closet under our stairs 2 houses ago that it was amazing what was under there. In fact, the sister missionaries came to help us move. Luckily, we were only moving around the corner. If we were moving across this United States, I don't know that we would have taken all this with us. But my husband had a pickup truck. We filled the back of that truck twice with food storage that came out from under that closet under the stairs. In fact, the sister missionaries called it the Mary Poppins closet because stuff just kept coming out. And they're like, it should be empty by now. It kept coming out. So be creative. You can store a lot of food storage without a basement or without any formal kind of setup for food storage. We had other friends, when you walked in their house, they had an office on the left-hand side of the front door. That was totally food storage, that whole room. So they were willing to give up a room in their house for food storage. You have to decide what's more important to you, to have this room for guests or to have it for food storage. They chose food storage, and you may not choose that. So it takes a lot of food storage to feed a family for a year. And there's just 2 of us at home, and I'm always amazed. That's a lot of space that's taking up. But that's okay. I cook with it, which is going to be our next topic is rotate, rotate, rotate. If you're not cooking with it, if you're not keeping track of what you have, it's pretty much useless. If you have never made a single thing from food storage and there's a natural disaster, not only you're suffering from the natural disaster, but you have food that you don't know what to do with. So I tend to make pretty extreme things with my food storage, not because in a natural disaster, and we're having it tonight, tres leche cake, I would probably not be making that in a natural disaster. But if I push every ingredient now, when there's a natural disaster, it's easy for me. Well, I've done that, I know I can do this. I've made chocolate mousse. I've made crazy things. Lime and cilantro, chicken enchiladas with homemade tortillas. Probably not going to do that in a natural disaster. But because I have played with the food, I'm very comfortable with it. So if you're not playing with your food storage, you're going to be in trouble even if you have food storage. So I asked some of my farmer students, what do you think are the most important things about food storage? And all of them said, you got to be using it. Several said you have to rotate, and the third one said she had to do a better inventory. In my smaller space that I've got crammed full of food storage, inventory can be hard. What one of my friends did is she actually made a list and put it on her pantry door, and if anybody took something, they had to write it down that they took it. So she knew what she had to replace. And I actually found out today something I really liked we're out of. And I hadn't been keeping inventory very well, but we're gonna get that rectified. Okay, how do we make it taste good? Does it taste good? There's a food storage book, a recipe book called I Dare You to Eat It. And that's how a lot of people feel about food storage. We had a steak event where you could get a point as you went around the room for every emergency preparedness thing that you did. One was to drink powdered milk. You would have thought that was just awful. I remember two young women standing across from each other, each with their cup, going, I'll do it if you do it. No, they did, and then they went, that's not so bad. Just a side note, the trick to making powdered milk taste better is put a little honey and a little vanilla in it. It tastes a lot better. Plus, powdered milk has changed so much in the last 20 years. It is a lot better than it used to be.
So the 40-year-old stuff I still have is.
I would say you're up a creek with that 40-year-old stuff. And my personal preference is the non-instant. The instant still has some of those flavors from my childhood, but the non-instant tastes a lot better. The problem with it is very difficult to reconstitute. Really, really difficult to reconstitute. So just keep that in mind. Also, there is powdered milk available that's got fat in it instead of non-fat, which is what we have in long-term storage, because the fat shortens the shelf life. The fat goes rancid. So if you are doing full milk, full fat powdered milk, you really have to rotate that. Every year you have to rotate it. And it's a lot more expensive. So, let's talk about making it taste good then. I have brought some of my favorite things. I am a food snob, it is true. And so there are things that I want in my food storage. I could buy, let's say, less expensive things. But if I don't eat it, remember how we talked about, even if it's a deal financially, it's not a deal if your family doesn't eat it or won't like it or has food fatigue or decides to stop eating because they can't eat that thing one more time. So get what you like. You will see I like citrus. So for instance, I can oranges and grapefruit every year. I love this. I love the brightness of it. When you're eating off from your food storage, this bright flavor, it's like marshmallows and hot chocolate. It really makes a difference. So I like bright things. In fact, I use essential oils, lemon, wild orange, and lime to put that brightness into food. One of the things we're tasting tonight is a salad, and it has wild orange essential oil in it to give it that lemon flavor. Cilantro oil is another good one. If you like Hispanic foods, Mexican foods, you can use that cilantro oil when you can't get fresh cilantro. Number 10, cans of things. Make sure you pick what you like. Tomato powder. This is one I could not live without, is tomato powder. You can make it in tomato juice, tomato paste, tomato sauce. You can add a spoonful to a stew and it just really enhances the flavor. So tomato powder. Freeze-dried cheese. Yum. This is, I can have freeze-dried cheese. I am happy. Cheese is the duct tape of the food world. I want that cheese. Dehydrated. One thing that I think is so yummy are the carrots. I really like the shredded carrots. They are so sweet, and you could do the dehydrated carrots at home. You don't have to buy the can, but they are so sweet. It's like candy to me. We're gonna see my real food snob tendencies coming out. This is the only brand of pasta sauce I will eat undoctored, meaning not putting a bunch of other stuff in it. So I could eat this from the jar on crackers, if that's all I had, and I would be okay. If it were another brand or two, which I shall not name, I wouldn't be able to do that because I don't like it. Remember, if you don't like it, don't store it. So this brand, watch for it on sale. Costco has it on sale. I don't know how to say it. Rose, I'm not sure. So watch for the deals on it and then use it sparingly. Powdered eggs. Not only can I taste them from a mile away, I can smell them from a mile away. Ova Easy Eggs. You will not be able to tell the difference. On their website, there is a video where they went to a restaurant famous for breakfast and they substituted Ova Easy Eggs for the eggs. And the patrons coming out, they interviewed them, nobody realized it. They just talked about how good the eggs were. So Ova Easy. The drawback with them, only a 5-year shelf life. But they are so good. In the freeze-dried world, in addition to cheese, I do like berries. The freeze-dried raspberries, not blueberries. The blueberries have no flavor. Strawberries, I like those too. The blackberries are so seedy, I would never get those in freeze-dried. So spend your freeze-dried money where it counts, berries and cheese. My feeling is if you're getting a can at home, why not spend 5 extra minutes and make it something special if you're going to all the work? So this is one of the books I recommend, Better Homes and Gardens Complete Canning Book, because it is unusual. Examples, let's see. Lemon basil tomato soup. Again, my love of lemon. What else do we have out here that's from them? I don't think I have anything else from them, but there is in here a raspberry white chocolate jam, which everybody wants from me as soon as I make it. Thai curry corn. One of our favorite things that we've eaten all up is sweet potatoes with ginger and maple. So it's stuff you would be canning anyway, but make it special. And it doesn't take any more work. So again, that gives you variety and makes it more enjoyable for your family. Some things that I dry from my trees at home, find sour cherries. Love these. And if you're going to buy them at the grocery store, anybody know the price per pound for dried sweet sour cherries? Well, it was almost $9 a pound. When you can do it at home. Well, okay, you do have to pick the cherries. Have your son or grandson do that for you.
Now you
Yes,
say these are freeze-dried,
these are dehydrated.
dehydrated?
Yeah.
And you stuck them in the bottle, and it looks like it's,
I
Air's been
use the
taken out.
vacuum sealer.
okay.
So these anything, this is part of repackaging, is using the vacuum sealer. I open the number 10 can of freeze-dried raspberries. As soon as you open those cans, they start to absorb moisture. So I repackage them into jars, and the Food Saver has a vacuum that'll fit over your jar, and so it's vacuum sealed. In the current shortage of flat lids, one of the good things about this is you can reuse those lids when you vacuum seal. It's not a once and done as when you can. So, and talking about vacuum sealing, remember one of our killers of food storage is oxygen. So here's what I bought. It's loose in the box. Oxygen, moisture could get in there. Light can't get in there probably, but heat.
Live.
So I have repackaged it in the vacuum sealed bag. Now, when you repackage, so I was gonna look, what's the shelf life on this? I just bought it. Oh, it's about 10 months. I've repackaged it. What do you think the shelf life is now?
Years more.
At least triple. So one of the other things I brought that I repackaged was the cereal my husband loves. So if you have children who live off of cold cereal, here's your option, is to vacuum seal it. Now, just a little trick, especially for you, I bought a cake mix. Normally I don't cook with cake mixes, but it's powdered. What do you think happens when you try and vacuum seal powder? So how did I do it? Any ideas?
Yeah. Put it in
Put it in the Ziploc bag first, then vacuum seal it?
Very close. I left it in, when you pull it out of the box, it's in a package. All you have to do is snip a little 1/4 inch into that package and then put that package in the bag you're going to vacuum seal. Yes?
Did you find out the hard way by vacuum sealing it?
I did try and vacuum seal powdered milk once, and it just wouldn't seal. I didn't have it, the vacuum sealer sucking up all that. But we had in my last steak, and I apologize if you are not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, I am not being exclusive, it's just some of my experience, so I refer to it. But in our last steak, we had a day where we made a breakfast, lunch, and dinner for $10 for a family of 4. And that's one of the tricks I learned that day, because cornbread mix was one of the items. So we just pulled it out of the little box and clipped the bag and then stuck the whole thing in the vacuum sealer bags. Did that make sense? Was I confusing? Okay. Part of my food snob tendencies. When I married my husband, he would eat plain old tuna. Oh, no. We only eat the solid tuna. Because if we have the other kind of tuna, we'll never eat it. We'll throw it away. So you watch, it can go on sale for $1 a can. Not that we stockpile this, but it's just one more option. I also can my own meat, chicken and ground beef, and I flavor it differently. In fact, one of the dishes we're having tonight has some canned chicken in it, so you'll get to see what that tastes like. Freeze-dried meat is expensive, so maybe have some freeze-dried. My all-time favorite freeze-dried meat, sausage. It is so good. So I would recommend that. I recommend canning. Drying meat, it still has a relatively short shelf life. So I don't know that I'm very much on drying meat. But if you love jerky, go for it. Oh, deceptive, unsweetened Kool-Aid. Why in the world would I want that?
It's a diversion, it's treat.
Okay, so we talked about what essential oils do, which is flavor. Unsweetened Kool-Aid can add flavor. So instead of making your plain old muffins that you always make, add some cherry Kool-Aid, and now you've got cherry muffins. Making a salad dressing with oil and vinegar, and you want to put it on a salad where you've grown the lettuce, and you're putting some freeze-dried raspberries in it, and you want to make a raspberry dressing. Unsweetened Kool-Aid. So unsweetened Kool-Aid is really versatile, and shelf life, I'm going to say forever. It does have a best use by date.
Twinkies.
Just like Twinkies, forever. So this use by date was, well, 2018. But you know what? I'd already had it for 7 years before then. So it's a pretty long shelf life, and I really recommend it. The same with hot chocolate. Much shorter shelf life because of fat. Remember, fat always shortens your shelf life. But comfort foods are really important in a natural disaster. My husband is the chocolate fiend, which is why we also have chocolate chips out here somewhere that I vacuum seal because I buy the great big bag at Costco. You can also make chocolate sauce. We've made chocolate pancakes, made chocolate Rice Krispie treats with this. Very versatile. So I'm big on hot chocolate. One of the last, two things out here. This is a great shelf-stable product, and it's from Costco. It's the Madras lentils. They also have another flavor, which I don't like very well, which is probably why I cannot remember. No heating required. I mean, probably better if you heat it, but you can eat it right out of the package. And it's a completely different flavor. We have an Indian flavor. We have variety. Remember variety. So I recommend that. One of my all-time favorite things is shelf-stable, all-time favorite things, shelf-stable whipping cream. Did you even know there was such a thing? Okay. So this is from Gosner's in Cache Valley. It's my second favorite. Trader Joe's has the very best. But we don't have a Trader Joe's locally. So Gosner's, my mom, anytime she goes up to Logan, she brings me a case. And the reason I have it is not necessarily that I want to make dessert, but my disdain for powdered dairy products. We talked about powdered milk. Powdered sour cream is downright awful. Any of those powdered things. So if you want to make something creamy, this is your friend. And we're having this tonight in the dish, so you'll get to taste it. But I really like this. Creamy, I like citrus. So my food storage is dominated by those two things, the creamy and the citrus. Anything else? We talked about include comfort foods, find out what your family likes, store what you like, eat what you store what you eat. Here's a challenge to each of you. Convert your family's favorite recipe to food storage. Have you tried it? It's really quiet out there. I know Fred is nodding his head. That's something that we do a lot, or I should say I used to do a lot. Unfortunately, by not having that church calling, I've kind of lost my momentum, and I am grateful to be able to teach this class tonight because it made me realize, I got to get back on the bandwagon. I have food storage, I know how to work with it, but I'm not staying up to date. I'm not continuing to practice. So. Oh, one more thing, I keep seeing stuff. Coconut milk, coconut milk, coconut milk. Again, if you can't have dairy, but you like creamy, coconut milk. One of the best things, well, we're gonna say two things I ever made. Thank goodness I was sitting in the doctor's office reading a magazine, because one of the things I made from the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook for canning that I didn't like very well was the Thai curry corn. But what am I gonna do with this? And I'm sitting in the doctor's office and I see a recipe that calls for corn, sweet potatoes, which we already talked about I canned with the maple and ginger, coconut milk, and some chicken broth. I have every one of those things in my food storage. Add a little curry, all of a sudden that corn was really darn good. So this has a lot of versatility, and you can get coconut cream and whip it just like whipping cream. So I love the flavor, I love the ease, I love the versatility of it. Are there questions before we wrap up? Oh, I'm neglecting. So the things that, if you need a book, what I recommend, and this one I recommend without hesitation. Store this, not that. I agree with probably 90% of what they say in there. It's an easy read, broken down by topics, by kinds of food. I really like this book. It's on Amazon, Store This, Not That. I highly recommend it. We talked about the Better Homes and Gardens Complete Canning Guide. That got stuck on my tongue. Again, canning recipes with a twist. If you're taking time to can, why not add 5 minutes and make it something really special? I don't even think you can get this anymore. This book on dehydrating, what I love is not only does it give very good instructions about how to dehydrate, but recipes for things you would never consider, such as dehydrating lettuce and making lettuce soup. That's not something I would think about. Or powderizing your dried pineapple and making a pineapple cake. It really gets you thinking. This was a gift, 100-day pantry. My complaint about this is a lot of it tastes the same. So you might only pick a handful of recipes out here, but a lot of things taste the same. Dinner in the jar. This is where you layer things in a jar and your whole meal is there. Sometimes you might need to add a can or two of something else. So This is thought-provoking, and there are some recipes in there that I like. Even though this looks well-worn, the gourmet, the everyday gourmet, it was a gift to me because the person who had it did not like it. And it's an old cookbook. How you know it's old is almost every recipe has TVP. Who remembers TVP? Textured vegetable protein. It's not anything I recommend that you have in your food storage, and if you have it, it's probably 30 years old. But you can take her recipes and use other freeze-dried meat, other home-canned meat, and they'll be good. In fact, we're having something from here tonight. So my complaints, as I mentioned, the TVP, and she uses a lot of powdered butter. And powdered butter is okay. It's really, really expensive. So if you're cooking with her, you're going to use a lot of it. It has a nice butter flavor, but you can't mix the powder and water and have butter you're going to want to eat on bread. So it's more a flavor thing. So again, the only 2 books I recommend without hesitation, Store This, Not That, and The Better Homes and Gardens Canning Guide. Any questions? Nick?
Yeah. It's recommended for a year at least.
To have food storage for at least a year?
What I want to know is how much water?
As much as you can store. So if you go back to the water class, was that 2 weeks ago or longer?
It is posted on the
Okay.
website.
So if you go to the website, you can watch that whole class. There are handouts and various links posted there, so you can find about water. But yes, store as much as you can.
What are your thoughts on pemmican? I guess is what they call it.
Yeah, like the Indians had.
Oh, it's that weird
Meat
and
and
corn or something.
Meat and berries and nuts.
I can't even tell you because I've never had it. It never sounded like something I'd want to eat. And again, store what you like. If you have limited space, store what you like. Yes.
So I have a question about vacuum sealing. I don't have one. I've always hesitated about getting one because I feel like it would be expensive. How much do you think it costs to vacuum seal each thing?
I mean, after you purchase the
After
vacuum
you
sealer.
purchase it, like I'm thinking the bags, and by the time you start calculating, I'm just like, maybe next time.
So if you're using jars that you already have, it costs you nothing because you get to reuse everything, including the flap. You're using it over and over and over and over. If you choose to seal in a bag, then you do have to buy the bags. According to my friend, Walmart has the best priced bags, but I have always gone on the Seal a Meal website and sign up, and this is true for everything. Sign up to get their emails and you will get notified of killer deals. So I'm gonna guess I paid 10 cents for each of these
That's
bags.
not too bad. I was thinking it'd be like 50 cents or something.
Oh,
My
no,
next question is we do have food storage, but are you finding ever since COVID that food storage is hard to get? Is it really
Yes.
expensive?
yes, people are going nuts. This is a sad commentary that Utah is the #1 hoarding state right now. Why is that? We have not done what we've been counseled to do and now we're panicking. So the prices on everything going up. When you go to food storage websites, sold out, sold out, sold out. And it's because of that panic and that hoarding.
And the jars too are hard to find.
Yeah,
Okay.
jars are sold out and you can't find the flats. So what good are the jars if you can't find the flats? I have purchased, and I will be using them for the first time this year, reusable lids for the jars. Now, they've had very mixed reviews. If you get them, please watch the videos on how to use them. And that's a lot of the failure rate, is they are not like your typical lid. You actually put the food in and you first put the lid on, it's so loose. And then when you take them out of the boiling water bath or canner, you tighten it. That's the exact opposite of traditional canning. So, and even that now, I lucked out, I got probably some of the last of those that were available because a blogger, the week after I put my order in, she wrote all about them, had a video all about them, and I got an email from the manufacturer. We are having a shortage because of Jill Wiener's blog. So you just have to keep your eyes open for things. Spread the word. If you put it out there to the universe, sometimes somebody knows and will get it for you or call you. One of the items I'm going to put on the website is about how to find food for less. You know, the things that you like. There's some apps. This was a lady from our last steak. She said, shop at Walmart. They match prices on everything. So if you're okay with shopping at Walmart and going to one store instead of many to get a deal, she had a whole bunch of suggestions and we will put that on. But yes, it's getting expensive. The price of wheat grinders have gone up. The price of sun ovens have gone up. The price of everything, emergency preparedness has gone up, as well as everything in general. And we're going into a period of inflation. So start now, start before inflation goes really crazy. Yes, the best time to start was yesterday, but today's the next best time. Any other questions, comments?
With the seal-a-mill bags, you can reuse them. I reuse
Oh,
them
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, so you just make them smaller, right? Is that what
Yeah.
you're doing? Okay, so here is my husband's cereal. We open it, we use it, we cut just below the seal line. Fill it again, seal it again. So your bag just keeps getting smaller, but you can reuse it many times. Once only have I had a seal fail. Now I had put some freeze-dried corn in the bag. And it was probably a year and a half later, but it had failed. How do you know if it's good? How do you know if your seal's good? It's like a brick. It's like a brick. So if it's not like a brick and everything's loose in there, your seal has failed.
I did do brown sugar and it was really hard to use when I opened it.
So how do you fix that? If you
Bread.
have brown sugar that's
Bread in a jar.
Put it in a bowl.
bread in a jar will work. A piece of apple in the brown sugar with the lid on will work. They've even got little glass things for brown sugar that you put them in and it makes it soft. So those are relatively inexpensive ways to re-soften your brown sugar without throwing it all away. Yes, Kyle.
So there's a couple of chat questions
Okay.
from online. First one is from Val. It says the vacuum sealer attachments to sealed jars is still out of stock and has been for 6 months. Do you know a place to get them?
I do not know, and I apologize for that. I've been using my vacuum sealer for almost 15 years, so I'm not up to date. This is what I always recommend. Do you have a neighbor or a friend who will let you use their vacuum sealer or their jar attachments? Maybe you could trade. I have this food, I'll seal your food if you'll let me use your sealer.
Lisa says, does Walmart still price match here? They don't do Vegas. And then another question with that is, does Kool-Aid, and Kool-Aid does go bad as well?
Probably it does go bad. We're talking about the Kool-Aid again. I just haven't experienced it in the 10 years that I've had Kool-Aid. When it goes on sale for 20 cents a package, I'm not really concerned. It's an easy thing to rotate. Walmart, I know that I have done price matching here. I have not done it since COVID started, so I don't know if it's still available, but I know I have done it in the past before that. You just have to take your add-in, or there's an app on your phone that you can use and show them that. Any other questions?
I know you've said it twice, but your sweet potatoes, what do you put in with them?
You can come look at the recipe, but it's maple and ginger. It's really good. Even my friend who is not a food storage can person, I gave him some of those. We made turkey dinner and he did some of those and he was, I could eat these all day. So if you're canning sweet potatoes, put some ginger and some maple. Very easy. Anything else back there, Kyle? Okay. I think that's it for tonight then. This is your assignment, whether you're watching from home, watching on the link, you're here in the room. If you're one of those people that said, I am ready, I have my year of food storage ready, as of this moment, right now, there's a natural disaster, and for 1 month, you have to live off your food storage. Now, I know who raised their hands, and in 2 months, I'm teaching no power cooking. There's going to be a question about that. How did you guys do? From this moment, no going to the store, no eating out, You eat what you have at home. I have some friends who do that every January. Like, oh, whatever we got in the house, then we eat. And they learned they don't like freeze-dried blueberries. So, because they were forced then to eat them. I can't tell you the benefit of doing that. We've done it. I learned some things, boy, I really wish I had this in my food storage, or I thought I liked this, but I really don't. So there's a lot to be said for that. Let's say you're not ready to do a month. Can you do a week? If you're not ready to do a week, maybe plan on 1 week a month cooking a dinner from food storage. We'll start with baby steps. Maybe you're not even ready for that. How about 1 dinner a month? But you've got to be using it, because if you don't use it, you don't know if you like it and you don't know how to work with it. So that's my challenge to each of you, is to start playing with your food storage. Rotate it, store what you like, and diversify. Have all different kinds of food storage.
So once you open up your big food storage can, how long do you think it would last? Like a year? Once it's open?
It depends on what it is. So everything has a different shelf life, and how are you storing it? Is it still remaining in cool, dry? Now it's exposed to oxygen, which is going to shorten
Kind
the
of like in
life.
your pantry, let's say you opened up whatever that is and put it,
Cabbages.
yeah, or no, I'm thinking it's like something dry that sits on the shelf, like potatoes or.
Then I seal them airtight. So if I open a number 10 can, I always repackage. I don't always do that with grain. I don't always do that with oatmeal. With wheat, what I usually do with the number 10 can is I grind it all and put it in the freezer, so it's already ground. Kind of diverging here again. A lot of people have wheat, and they have an electric wheat grinder. They have no power. What are you going to do with all that wheat? Who out there read all the Laura Ingalls series growing up? The Long Winter. Do you remember The Long Winter? What did they spend every waking moment doing? Grinding wheat in the coffee grinder. And if you have one of those crummy hand mills, you are going to be hating life, because you will spend every waking moment grinding wheat.
Takes about 10 minutes per cup.
Yeah, and it's really coarse, and then you
Yeah.
have to grind it again and again if you want to
Great
get.
cereal.
Yeah, if you're good for cereal. Kyle.
I was just gonna say, there's a website I kind of found that I've been looking at a little bit, but it's Amish tools, because they don't have power. And they have mastered a lot of these things. And so if I can find it again, that is a place where you can actually buy the tools that the Amish use,
Yes,
they kind of help out with this.
and I've seen that before. There is one really nice hand wheat grinder. It's got big stones, but it's about $500. So it's more than an electric wheat grinder. But if that's what you've got, then then you're covered no matter what. And if you have kids who can sit there and grind for you, or a spouse who will sit there and grind for you.
A
Yes.
grain recipe for whole grain, and it's just boiling water, a thermos, so a cup of grain, wheat, whatever it happens to be, 2 cups of boiling water, cap the thermos the night before, the next morning it's ready to eat. So there are a lot of things you can do with whole grain without spending all day grinding it.
Yes, and my mother's cousin wrote a book that I must have found somewhere safe, because I couldn't find it, but it's recipes on what to cook when you have wheat but not a wheat grinder. And there are probably 50 recipes in there that are not only no wheat grinder required, but you could certainly convert them by, she uses fresh ingredients. You could use fresh, dried, dehydrated, canned, and still enjoy that recipe. So I don't know that I answered your question, Kirsty. I would say I would eat it within a year if you're really slow. It is going to start to deteriorate. That's just the nature of food, just like anything. If you opened a box of cereal and it sat on your shelf, it's the same. But the more fat, the faster. And that's why as soon as I grind my wheat, I put it in the freezer, because now you've got that wheat germ exposed and it's going to want to go rancid. Fats are the hardest thing to store, the very hardest. So rotate. I actually keep mine in the freezer. I keep bottles of oil in the freezer so I can extend their life. But they're really hard to store.
And that's the same with nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some granola and big boxes, And I had space in my freezer, and they were in the freezer for years. We pulled it out, it was delicious.
Yes. And I store my nuts in the freezer too, and then I vacuum seal some. It depends on what's happening in the freezer. If I need room in the freezer, then they go in the vacuum seal. If I have room in the freezer, they go in the freezer. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought because it had something to do with that. Oh well, it'll come back when everybody's gone home. You know it will. So, if there are no more questions, I do have samples. Again, you folks at home, come on down. We have lots. So thank you for listening or participating tonight. And remember, next week, zombie apocalypse and tinfoil hat making. So see you then. Give me 1 second to get set up here.
2 weeks.
That's how we got the guys.
I think we're good here. I only brought 3 things to taste. So we have the jumbo humbo plates. Okay, let me tell you what we have. This is the shelf-stable whipping cream, and I kept it separate. So if you don't want the chocolate cake and you just want to taste this, you can taste it. This is the tres leche cake. Let me get some utensils out here. We also have,
So what is in the cake?
it is chocolate, flour, no egg, no dairy. It's got oil, some vinegar, and baking soda. So the vinegar and the baking soda work together to create the rising agent. When you have baking soda, you need an acidic ingredient, so that's the vinegar. And then the chocolate that gets poured over, chocolate chips. You're gonna hold this against me because I'm a food snob, as I've said. Sweetened condensed milk, something I never want to admit to anybody is in my house. And evaporated milk and some of the shelf-stable whipping cream. And I will say that is really good. So if you're not familiar with this cake, it is spongy and wet. That's the nature of the cake. It's not an accident. It's supposed to be that way. And then I have here, this is a pasta salad with dried ingredients, canned ingredients, and home canned chicken. So you get to taste that. And last of all, oh, come see what this is. I don't think I can get it out. You guys familiar with the Wonder Box, a thermal cooker? Here's the lid, and it's still really hot. This is one of the things we'll be demonstrating in the no power cookie. I don't know if I can get this out without Sandra, grab the box. Okay, so it's a container that will actually, you can cook things in it. There's a bottom here that your pan fits down in. I only put the towel in because if this spilled over, I didn't want it all over the thermal cooking bag. You would think I didn't know what I was doing, huh? Here we go. So I'll show you better when I take this out. So these are, it's kind of like a barbecued bean, but I like it because it has maple and it has dried apricots in it. And it has a little bit of heat in it too. This is, as I said, the dish where I found out that when I opened the new can of beans, oh, those are only 8 years old. They're not tasting like they're 8 years old. And again, why do you want to cook with your food storage? Because I would hate them to continue to be there. I think they're good, and then there's an emergency and they're not so good. So this is the Wonder Box. This is one I made myself. So it's full of beanbag, little styrofoam balls that you can get at Walmart. And food can just settle down there in the pan. And then you leave it in there and put the lid on. So let's say you're making a bean dish. You've soaked your beans overnight, bring them to a boil at least 15 minutes, put your pot in there, put the lid on, and they will cook for you. My next door neighbor was somewhat dubious about this, and so she came over when I was using it, and she asked me, how long has the food been in there? It'd been in there 9 hours. I took the lid off. She still needed hot pads to lift the pan out. So it really keeps the heat in there. What I like about that is if you don't have fuel or you have very limited fuel, you can, this is how I look at it, you can make 2 meals with 1 little thing of fuel. One you're going to bring to a boil, put in your thermal cooker, it'll be ready for later. One you're going to eat right then, whatever it is that you're making, rice or heating something out of a can. So you get 2 meals from your little bit of fuel. I like that this stays warm. It will do the same for cold. It'll keep something cold. So, but again, we're going to talk about this at the No Power Cooking class. Now, I'm putting our organizers on the spot. They have it scheduled for a Thursday evening. What I would like to do is have it on a Saturday so you can see things actually being used. Would you be more interested in a Saturday so you can see the sun oven, the volcano stove, the rocket stove? Would you like to see those working that we can't necessarily do in a room at night? If you would, see Fred or see Kaya, because that I think would be a better choice, but that's my own thought and it may not be yours.
Are you saying outside in the park then?
Yeah, outside in the park.
Or the park. But we can switch it to that Saturday, and we'll just cancel the meeting here that week and switch it to the Saturday following and do it in the park.
Okay,
As long as Fred, are you able to technologically film this?
I think so.
Okay.
Check our.
We'll work out the details, but I really think seeing how things work is important. Because I could explain to you how this works, but by seeing it and seeing this dish that is so hot, you really understand how effective this is. So, okay, let me put some utensils out. Come and get some samples. All right, don't all rush.
We'll wait until the camera's out.
Okay, yeah, put the camera off, please. Okay, we're doing that and that and that. I need to put a serving napkin.